Got it. So I think we're good to start. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this first inaugural meeting of the Joint Management Committee. And Judy, thank you for participating while in transit. Really appreciate that. It's pretty exciting to have this meeting. It's been a long time in coming. And so I just wanted to start off with a few introductory remarks before we dive into the agenda and start getting down to business. But really, it's just echoing what I was initially saying about exciting being here. I mean, for some of you, you've been involved in this project for years, if not decades. And for Jillian and myself, it's only been a few years, 3 years. And but it's been an intense 3 years. And so we're kind of fortunate, and same for Jamie too. And we're kind of fortunate in coming on board with the project right at the time when it was taking off. And so for me, it's very exciting to be at this juncture where we're now really moving into the operational side of things. And so while the building is still not yet built and there's still a lot of work to be done down there, it's getting close. It's quite close. And so it's pretty exciting to think about actually being in that space and operating in that space and what needs to be done to do that successfully. And that's what this team is all about, is to try to help support the not just the municipality in operating the facility, but the entire community in enjoying that space and getting the best use out of it. So thank you so much for putting your names forward and for stepping up to this challenging and exciting task. And so maybe, because I'm not sure that we all do know each other, I think we just do a quick round of introductions. And so who you are, where you're from, and maybe why you wanted to join this committee. I can start. Liam Edwards, CAO of municipality. I kind of didn't have much choice but to join, so there you go. No, I really, really want to be a part of this one. We have so many committees on Bowen. As you probably know, we have the most committees out of any municipality in the province. And I actually haven't even been to them all because there's so many of them. And, but this one is quite important. They're all important, but this one is pretty close to the work I'm doing. So we go to.
Yep, I'm Jillian Drake, the Manager of Recreation and Community Services. Also didn't really have much choice but to be on the committee. No, it's really exciting to be figuring out how we're going to make this work and how to run programming through there and have such a great facility for the community. So I'm looking forward to figuring it all out.
Hello, my name is Mimi Ramsey, and I voluntarily came. And I love to be civilly involved, and so the committees are a wonderful way for any person to want to step in and be involved with local things. And my jam is arts and culture, so I'm really thrilled that we're going to do, what's happening with the community center will open arts, culture, recreation, and community involvement for everybody here. I'm so excited about that. So I'm excited to lend a little bit of, a couple more eyes and ears on the process of managing, specifically how space is managed and how contracts are drawn up for the people using the space. I think that's a challenge and also a wonderful thing to be able to have for the community. So I'm excited about that and honored to be here. Thank you.
I'm Rob Glore. I'm chair of the board of the Arts Council, the Hearth, and so I'm that organization's appointee to the committee, and I'm also in my career. I've spent many years in managing performing arts organizations and venues, And I'm currently the CEO of the West Vancouver Foundation, so I'm not directly in that anymore, but in my role at the Hearth, this has been a big focus.
Hi, I'm Kim Selady. I moved to Bowen in 1989, but then I went away for 15 years to Ontario. My background was working in theatre. I've run different companies. I spent 6 years working for the Canada Council for the Arts as a program officer. And currently I am running Presentation House Theatre in North Vancouver, which is a facility that has mostly culture in it, but some recreational activities. It has multiple spaces. And we are funded partially by the city, but by other levels of government. And I volunteered, I was a volunteer, not voluntold. Because I wanted to contribute some of my expertise and my background, I thought it was maybe useful for a community like this. And I wanted to make sure that it was a success for everyone.
I'm Fraser Elliott. I am on the board of Theatre on the Isle and work with them on stage and off stage. And then also with Bard on the Rock, which is Graham Ritchie's group, as well as David Cameron and Jackie Minns' King Babies. So helping them behind the scenes and on stage with them as well too. So for me, my big thing is going to be advocating for the theatre groups here on the island, putting on some shows, and really looking forward to what we can do with this really cool space, because it's going to change Bowen theatre dramatically.
Yay. Jamie Schaefer, I'm the Executive Director for the Hearth, Bowen Island Arts Council. I'm here representing the Hearth as a staff person. My past life as an Executive Director in the Columbia Valley, I did work really closely with their community center, and so I've kind of done a little bit of this before, working with government and local organizations.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Judy, over to you.
You're on mute.
Mute.
There, okay. Judy Getty, Bowen Island Council for the last almost 1 full year now. And when I took that position, I resigned from the board of the Hearth Arts Council, and I'd been on that for maybe 5 years. And I've been probably every position except president of Theatre on the Isle for the 40 odd years that I've been on Bowen. And yeah, been involved directly and indirectly with the many manifestations of this whole idea of having a community center. So I am the council liaison for this committee.
Great, thank you, Councillor Judy.
Thanks, Judy. I'm Steph Short. I'm the committee coordinator. Many committees that Liam was talking about. I know some of you through that. I'll be here to support you.
So keep us on the straight and narrow. Yeah. And we also have Kristen Watson, our CFO, who will make sure that we don't overspend. Yeah. And thank you for the introductions. It's great to see the background, hear a little bit about you folks and what you bring to the table. So I look forward to digging into some of these issues with all of you and getting our sleeves rolled up and getting some good work done. So next is to review the agenda and approve it. So if there's anything that anybody has any concerns with or on table items that they might want to raise, now's the time. Hearing nothing, so could I have somebody move to adopt the agenda? Okay, thank you, Councillor Getty. Seconder, Rob, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Nothing? Okay, great. And the order is a little bit backwards. We already did the welcome and introductions, so and moving on to public comments. I don't see anybody here, so we can move past that into new business. And we got a little presentation from Steph about committee orientation. And so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. So some of you have already served on committees on Bowen Island. We have this handbook. It's pretty straightforward what I'm going to share with you. I just want to make sure that you have a chance to go over how things go and you have a chance to ask questions if you need. Agendas. We are a little different from council. We only give 5 days before the meeting. So I'll get the agenda material, ask people for it 7 days before, and then will be published and distributed to you 5 days before. That's often a package full of reading, sometimes not, like today. Minutes come, draft minutes will go to council. I'll get the chair sign off on the minutes. They'll go to council in the draft form, and then the committee will adopt them at their next meeting. Minutes are high level. Themes. It's a record of what happened at the meeting, not what was said at the meeting. We like action items, decisions, and I love resolutions. So anything you guys can vote on, as much information you can get in those, that's appreciated. You know what quorum is. Hear about resolutions again. You can make resolutions within the group to say we all decide this, or you can make a recommendation to council. Recommendations to council are often to direct staff. Because, well, Liam will be in the room, he's the CAO, we can often ask staff for things with him here, but generally it's good practice to be asking council to direct staff.
And just for clarity on that point, none of the committees have the ability to direct staff to do work, so that's what that's about.
Yeah, even if you ask with your manners.
Pretty please.
Yeah, action items, we'd like everyone to have them. They're fun. Subcommittees and working groups. Those are usually project-based. You'd meet off-site with no cameras and wherever you want to do, or you can meet here. Try to give your notes so that they can appear for the public agenda for the next meeting. Documents open to the public. We may be doing some closed meetings with this group, I expect.
Yep.
Those will fall under the parameters of the community charter, probably under municipal service. There's an email address. I think this one is ccjmc@vimbc.ca. All of your email addresses are in that group, and I'm in that group as well. No one can see your email address, but you will receive them. If you get emails from the public, this group may, please don't respond. So I'll navigate who is an appropriate response. If somebody comes in, especially if it's like tempting to respond, please don't. And that's a good way to communicate with each other as well. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steph. So next item is to talk about the committee itself. And we want to start with talking about the terms of reference for the committee. And talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities and possible subcommittees that might come up. So, okay, great. Steph's got them up on the screen there too. So I don't think we're going to go through and read this line by line. Hopefully you've all read it and have a pretty clear understanding of what the purpose of the committee is and the mandate would be. But perhaps what we can do is we can go through it and just ask if there's any clarifying questions, comments, things like that people might have. So if we pause on the first page, anybody have any questions or comments about that? Okay. We move to the second page. Membership is pretty straightforward and we're all here. So that speaks for itself. Yeah.
So just to clarify on membership, Liam, you're the member recommended by BIM. That's the.
Mimi is. And Liam is stepping in today to be the acting chair until we do the elections at the meeting.
So that wasn't clear.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not actually a member But I'll be probably attending almost all of the committees anyway. So in the same way that I attend a few of the committees, but I'm like Finance Advisory Committee, but I'm not actually a member, I still participate. But I'm not a voting member. So when it comes to voting and things, I don't
And Kristen's.
And Kristen,
We're resource members.
and so and so when, later in the agenda, at the end of the meeting, the last item really is the election of the chair. And so then that person will take over this hot seat and I'll be sitting back there with Kristen.
You'll come hang with me.
I'll come hang with
Cookies.
with the cookies in the water. Yeah.
Can I ask maybe how it was that you were chosen to?
Yeah, very fair question. Yeah, especially because I didn't really elaborate about some of my professional background. But I was served on another municipal committee before the turnover in our current council and mayor and community rec committee. And so I had let staff know that once this committee was open to the public, that I was very much interested in being involved. And what I do professionally is I'm a cleaner and a gardener on Bowen. And I've been self-employed the 15 years I've lived in BC since I immigrated to Canada. And in that time of being self-employed and working as a mother, I made a living as a gardener and a cleaner. And prior to that, I did hands-on management of mainly non-profit organized, not community or government-funded organizations, but nonprofit arts, recreation, and retreat organizations. So mainly guest and conferences services, staffing and management of guest and conferences services, of vetting of arts groups or community groups that would be using space, creating the kinds of documents needed for groups coming in to rent the space, agreements and rules and regulations in terms of how to use a space and how to leave it, costing around the space, arts grants, volunteer coordination, event management. My most recent in Vancouver when I was working as a cleaner, which since I moved to Bowen 8 years ago, I've just been working very diligently as a gardener and cleaner. And that's why I love to be involved civilly in terms of the committees, is I haven't done any professional work in the arts community on Bowen yet. And so I've just been kind of waiting to be involved with community arts and culture more ardently, more directly. But previous to this, before I moved to Bowen, I was very involved with the Beaumont Studios Art Collective in Vancouver. And it's 2 buildings and 40 commercial artists. And we have, there was space that it's still there. It's a nonprofit arts umbrella. With 2 event spaces. One is very small, it's a gallery, and the other is up to 500 people. And so that was work that was very engaging for me. And I worked on voluntary and on staff, part-time staffing position, doing the nuts and bolts of moving the risers, tearing down the art, putting up the new space within, moments of new groups coming in and working with the vitality of communities that were working with children in arts programs for summer camps and for, spring break and things like that. And then also all, through the range of all kinds of professional, I would say, beginner and then through the range of all kinds of professional multi-arts space. So that's what I come with, and I've just been waiting patiently to become involved while raising our son, who's now, my husband and I live at Belterra, and I love community. That's one reason that we live at Belterra. So it's community coordination and collaboration is the heart of what I do personally, and it's something that I love professionally. So I'm happy to offer my ears and my eyes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then when the new position is hired, the programmer or the facility manager.
Yeah.
That is a sort of an well, they won't be a voting member. that they'll be at these meetings?
Correct.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jamie's talking about the facility manager position. And so they'll be attending all these meetings and
Do you have some applicants?
yes, yeah, I'm in that process right now. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So there's the term of the office, which is 3 years, ish. And then also, the terms of reference does talk about subcommittees. So I thought maybe we pause there because we may want to talk a little bit more about that. And the subcommittees, like in the agenda, there's some ideas of what subcommittees might look like. But really it's up to this committee to determine like, okay, well, what kind of things do we need to create a subcommittee for? The idea of the subcommittee is to have something that can be a little more nimble, a group of people that want to or are able to dive a little more deeply into something, and then bring it back to this committee for further deliberation and consideration, and then ultimately anything that really impacts like scope, schedule, budget of the facility has council approval. So this committee itself has a tremendous influence and impact on the facility and the community through the facility. The primary decisions will go back to council. So we can have a subcommittee dig in deep on like what is the like code of conduct in the facility or something as simple as that. And that might work its way back to council.
And subcommittees can include people from outside of the group too. So if there's a project that requires expertise that's not at this table, go find the guy and volunteer tell the girl. We're done.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, can we just say with subcommittees too, just to be clear about, so people understand that it's not with the same level of administrative support.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Don't call me.
Or any level.
Yeah, or
Coordinate the meetings or
You
take
gotta-
the minutes and.
I can send you guys a list of each of your contacts, so you can
Yeah.
talk amongst yourselves about that stuff.
Yeah. Well, like, so the terms of reference, for example, was drafted through a subcommittee of the steering group for the project. Actually, let's pause on that for a moment. So we have the steering committee for the overall project, and their role has been to bring the project from idea to fruition. And so that committee will remain in existence until the facility has been handed over to the municipality and is fully operational. So there'll be a bit of overlap of that committee still operating while this committee is getting up and going. And that committee, rather than trying to come up with the terms of reference for this committee, like all together around a table like this, a few of us broke off and hashed it out and batted it around and then took a few tries to get it right and that's how that went. So
And then the main committee recommended it to council.
that's right. Meetings, quorum, voting, conduct, it's all pretty straightforward. And administration, again, that's for this committee. And then what is and then the MOU is attached for reference. The MOU is the memorandum of understanding that's between the Hearth and the municipality. And working collaboratively to bring this project to fruition and into operations and beyond, so. Is there anything more that we need to touch on about the terms of reference? Any questions? Okay, great.
Okay.
Go ahead, Judy.
I think it would help if people understood that yourself and Jillian and myself and Jamie and Rob are all on the steering committee that is still ongoing until the building is completed.
Good point. Thank you. So next we want to talk just a little bit about roles and responsibilities. And so I think with any committee of council, the primary role is to support council in the delivery of a service to the community. And so ultimately, that's what we're here to do. And but more broadly, we touched on it at the very introductory remarks about how this committee will help ensure that the facility is providing a service to the entire community. So we're directly supporting council, but through that, the entire community. And I think it's really important to remember that this center, this facility, once it's actually up and running, will mean a different thing to pretty much everybody that visits it. And so it'll have significance to the arts community, and we're really glad to have good representation from the arts community. It'll have meaning and significance to the recreation community, to the crafting community, to the hanger out community that just want to lounge around, to the municipal staff who will be working there 5 days a week, some people more. And so we need, as a committee, I think it's important to remember that we're really trying to provide this broad spectrum of service to the entire community. But in that, don't hesitate to bring your unique perspectives and your personal experience to the table, because that's in large part why you are also selected to be part of the committee is to share that and bring that forward too. But know that there will be times where we may not see eye to eye on things, and there may be competing interests and potentially conflict, but that doesn't mean a bad thing. It just means that we work through it together, and ultimately we would arrive at perhaps a better place, a better solution, had we all just agreed merrily and all we did was play pickleball there every day. Unfortunately, and we're not being streamed live, but I know it's being recorded, but I'm going to say it right here, right now, that the likelihood of pickleball in this facility, unfortunately, is very low. So.
Oh, inside, but outside.
Inside, well, never say never. So I'm just going to put that out there right now.
I can take lessons on how to make pickles.
I love
do that.
Yeah, I love pickles. Yeah. And so our role is really to come to the table with an open mind and objective thinking about how to best serve the community through this facility and ultimately be responsible for the operations of the facility, but from an advisory point of view. So it is called a management committee, but it's not an operations committee. And so we will have staff that are responsible for operating the committee. And ultimately, I am the one that's ultimately responsible for the operations of the facility. And so it's not something for you to bear the weight on your shoulders, but to know that you've got staff support in listening to and implementing the advice that you bring forward that gets council endorsement. So anybody want to add anything to the bit about roles and responsibilities for the committee? Okay. Before we move on to the next subject of priorities and timelines and work plans and that kind of things, we have subcommittees again here. Just wanted to stop there to see if there was anybody that had any further questions or.
Very good.
Okay. So in 4.3, we thought we'd just take some time to talk a little bit about priorities, timelines, work plan development, and next steps. To be clear, even though I'm not a committee member, I don't expect that this committee would come away from this meeting today with a hammered out timeline of list of priorities and things like that. It's more so planting a seed here today about perhaps when the committee meets again, that we will start to nail that down a little bit more. And I think one of the key elements of a strong committee is that no idea is a bad idea, and that we respect everybody's ideas. And so we may put things in, some people might call it a parking lot, or I call it a bike cage, or whatever you want to call it. And we can hang on to that for further deliberation at another time if that now is not appropriate. But just wanted to create some space right here, right now, to talk a little bit about like, okay, well, what are the priorities for the committee? And if I may, just to kind of get the ball rolling, we are deep in the trenches of building the facility, and Jillian is, bless her soul, our lead at a staff level for the municipality on the project, and knows it intimately, perhaps better than she ever thought she would need to.
Far more.
Far more. I'm told that we have 68 doors with almost one unique keying elements. And so if you want details, Jillian.
Unlock set mechanism for each door.
So while we're deep in the details of getting this thing built, and we just spent 4 hours with the constructors today going over the schedule and really digging in deep on those elements. We're also keenly aware that this thing is going to open, and it's going to open before we know it. It feels far away, but it is coming quickly. And there's a lot to be done in terms of making that opening successful. So one thing that we do want to talk about, and I think this committee will play a key role in, is what does opening look like? And so there's an opening day. Rob and I have had to talk about like an opening week and opening events and things like that. But there's also the actual practical side of like literally somebody being there to physically open the door, make sure the floors are clean, and that the snow has been removed, that people can actually safely get in and out of the building, the toilets actually flush and things like that. And so I think some of the priorities for this committee will be looking at like, what kind of facility procedures need to be in place for just general management and general use.
So I guess my first question is to put a clock on everything I'm assuming it's a phased opening, right? There's going to be occupancy by employees before public, or is it just literally, are you guys, the plan here to get ready everything and then have like everybody arrive on the same day?
No,
I'm just, is it a phased turnover from the contractors?
Well, we're not accepting a phased opening in that way, in the sense of like a phased occupancy.
Right.
So, I'll be really clear.
Yeah.
I do not want to move municipal staff into that facility and then it not be open and ready for the public for
Gotcha.
6 months, because that would just be awful in my books. But more so, but you're absolutely right in that it will be a phased transition to operating the facility.
For
And
functioning.
for functioning.
And so,
It will most likely be that the municipal staff are in there first and we are getting a feel
Right.
for it. And that we then move to like, okay, we are now going to start using the small multi-purpose room for like,
Right.
after school care, and start getting play care, start getting things going. And then we have some theater production.
right. And is it this committee's mandate and role to be part of the planning of all of that phasing and how, what happens next? Like in terms of that overall schedule and plan?
I think we would like to bounce things off of this committee and input from this committee for that. And definitely for also like the more the celebratory side of things too.
Right, like, yeah, any kind of.
Yeah.
Service. And do you have even a pencil date about when the earliest and what the latest, but like the window of that?
Well, so there's what the contractor tells us, and then there's what I might think.
Yeah, just to get even broadly.
Yeah, so
I'm new to this, so I.
The contractor,
No idea.
right. So the contractor is now telling us that a handover date of January 26th. But, you know, and no disrespect to the contractor, but I believe that it will be later. Because that's a fairly ambitious schedule that they're working towards. And, we're learning about BC Ferries retrofit work for the berth on Bowen, and that's gonna impact, because they do have workers that work on Saturdays sometimes. And so, and there'll be weather events, and there'll be perhaps, hopefully not, supply chain issues. And
Gotcha.
so I'm anticipating sometime in the early new year, but not January.
Right.
And, but then, we haven't nailed it all down, but there'll be the opening of the facility in terms of like, okay, we're starting to use it. From an office point of view, probably initially, then start programming activity in it and start to use it from a programming perspective. And then once we're safely in, we know things are operating well, is probably when we'll then start to have much more like that celebratory, like opening, like events.
And from a revenue generating perspective, is there an expectation, because I just go like, wow, I have to be honest, January 20, even February, not knowing how far the planning has gone, but there are a lot of moving pieces that have to be put into place. So like from a revenue generating perspective on the facilities, like rentals or people paying for use or any of that kind of stuff, what's the expectation on your side, the city side on that? Like, does that all have to be in place by January, February?
No, we recognize that the revenue generation will be not an instantaneous thing, right? And so there's a couple of things that will happen at the same time, right? So there's the getting to know how to operate and be in the building, right? And learn the quirks of the building. And so that's going to be a gradual curve. And as we learn that, and that can take at least a year to really fully understand how the facility can be maximized to its full potential. And it'll be a similar curve in terms of the revenue generation. There'll be the period of figuring out competing demands around bookings and wanting to use the space. And so the Hearth folks have already started to engage a little bit amongst the community about like who's interested in what. And I am an eternal optimist, but I know that this facility will not be overbooked. But I'm pretty sure that it will be overbooked in the same way that our ferry is overbooked, right? Like BC Ferries tells us that there's 40% capacity on that boat, just not when anybody wants to use it.
Exactly.
So it'll probably be the same with this facility, like everybody will want to use it around the same time. And so we're going to have that growing pain of getting to know how the facility operates and functions and getting to know, well, how can we best program it to maximize revenue while maximizing the benefit to the community for the service delivery?
I have some experience in that area in St. Catharines because I was on a committee when they opened up a facility. And the reason I ask that is the perception of, like the pressure is coming from the facility to not be what we call the white elephant, which is a drain on a municipality, right?
Yes.
So therefore fees costs, user fees are set to balance that. And that, if it gets off to a rocky start, meaning it doesn't reach its goals because the goals may be aspirational or what the costs are, it's quite complicated. It can cause some members of the community not to engage because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And it causes this
Yeah.
unhealthy spiral of a new facility that starts in debt.
Right.
And that's what I'm just wondering how much we're, as a committee in our policies, want to be cognizant of that.
Well, that's why you're here, right? Truly, honestly, we recognize that, and we know currently with our community recreation service delivery model, there is this idea that we try to be revenue and expense neutral. But we know that it's subsidized, and and you ask any municipality and their community recreation services is a subsidized service. That's part of the goal, part of the reason there. And so what we would want this committee to do is to dig into that a little deeper. So that'd be one of the policies that I would love this committee to be able to dig into sooner than later, to try to come up with okay, well, what does this sliding scale look like in terms of revenue generation, right? And just off the top of my head, right, weddings get charged full bill, right? And maybe we only do 12 a year or something like that, right? And it's okay, we're capping weddings at 12 a year and they're charged full premium. And when Elton John comes to town, same thing, right? But then when we're doing Scrabble nights for the 55 plus, it's well, they get a break, right?
See kind of a range in that. That's good. My other question, just to get a grasp on it, is deficiencies or that, I've done 3 of these and it's never clean in its relationship about going in that transition.
Right.
And those costs in that transition is another financial challenge that can weigh and cause issues over the operations because they have to be made up in some way. So has the city, have you, because you're in charge, have you had some thought in how that might be managed? How much of that might fall on the operations?
Well,
Is there a buffer here?
Yeah, and we do clearly delineate capital from operating costs, and so, but we have thought a lot about the deficiencies, and as you get closer, it becomes the focus becomes tougher in terms of okay, well, where are we at from a budgetary perspective relative to the cost expenditure perspective?
Right.
And we've been very clear from the outset that our focus remains on the public accessibility side of the facility is where we're not willing to cut corners.
Right.
And so if we have to start pulling, my staff don't want to hear it, but if we have to start pulling back on the capital side, it's going to be in the municipal hall component, right? And so we are literally bringing everything from here in this building to there, literally, we're taking these acoustic panels, we're taking this audio visual, we're taking the tables and chairs for the municipal side. And we're trying to then push more of the budget to the public side.
Right.
So that's how we're managing that pinch on the capital side of it. From an operating point of view, I'm really glad that we've got Kristen on the team who's really looked at the original business case, which had an operations plan, which was, I think, built in a time and a period where the reality of this coming to fruition was very distant and wasn't really thought out well.
Right.
And Kristen, thankfully was well, this is real now, and we have to be very honest about what it takes. And so we've revamped it, and it is not cheap to operate. And so I have a much greater confidence in the operating budget that we're now putting to it. And we don't believe that we're going to start out with balancing that operating budget against revenue. from the facility in the get-go, because that I don't think is, maybe we will be pleasantly surprised. But that's not the approach that we've been coming at it from. And so, but ultimately, we would like to get closer to a revenue neutral. But we also know that, like, currently, we're expending a hefty bill for leasing this space. And that by moving into this new facility, we release that, and that goes towards paying
Right,
the debt financing to own that space.
right.
In a long-term model, which we are always trying to think in that long-term model, when we pay down that debt and then we own the facility, we're now freeing up operating costs.
So I guess, so what you're really looking for from us is more of like a higher level philosophical guideline structure. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that and maybe even getting down into like, okay, here's the rates, like this is, but we'll have the assistance of Kristen and others to help us with those conversations.
Gotcha.
But like, we definitely, I think from this team, we would really like that view to, okay, what type of programming takes priority on this space over here, and what kind of like time allocation does this type of programming get? And because these are going to be difficult decisions in and amongst the community to wrestle with, is like, okay, well, like, when do we get in there and when do we get a chance? But then taking it even further down into the weeds of like, okay, well, how much are we going to charge?
Right.
Because, and then ultimately from municipal point of view, all of our fees and charges have to be enshrined in a bylaw. So essentially, what I would imagine how it happening is maybe it's a subcommittee of this group to kind of go away, like, let's just, for the way I work best is get something on paper. Let's get a like rough draft of what a fee schedule might look like. Bring it back to the committee. The committee can kick it around and hash it out, maybe take several iterations. Kristen looks at it and says, you're completely out to lunch. And then we all get to agreement. The committee then says, okay, we're ready to take it to council for consideration, and council then get blessed with it.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's a long one, just need to get a bit of an.
No, it's good. It's a great question. Yeah.
Well, and just to add to that too, I think some of you around this table are really well poised, suited to help with that work, because as you know, it's not just a standard rental of the room. It's sort of a la carte. Then you need this, and you need the technician, and you need this level of, maybe you need these microphones, and you need those speakers. So, and all of that, you will know all of that.
Yeah.
better than us.
And the one thing I guess I'll be honest, what I'm trying to avoid is an experience I had in St. Catharines, where the city of St. Catharines built a brand new shiny, I call them. And by the time they arrived at all of that, most of the user groups, it was out of their reach. So the plan collapsed.
Oh, right.
Because it was, the
Yeah.
cost of the facility was above the
Right.
ability of the community, because it then went to ticket prices.
Wow.
And the ticket prices were too high, so all of them went back to their other venues.
Right.
And so then it ended up being used, they had, like, just the plan fell apart.
Right.
And it was just, it happened, you know what I mean? Nobody made it happen.
Yeah.
But by the time they built it and they equipped it, and I will be honest, it was caused by the user groups who were surveyed and asked for what they wanted.
Right.
And that list was taken by the municipality and put there,
We're gonna deliver.
and they did, and then no one could afford to rent it.
Right.
And that's what we call, why they're called white elephants.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm just wanting to, because I think, I'm understanding that that's what we're charged with here.
Yes.
Try and figure out that thing to find that balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
In
definitely
part.
similarities there.
Yeah, no, in part.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, okay,
Yeah. And I hope the heck is,
Not by
I hope
January
the heck
26th.
we're learning from St. Catharines.
Yeah. And not by January 26th.
Yeah.
Just
No, no, good, no.
Good.
But at the same time, I think not knowing those rates is a stumbling block, is a hindrance to groups wanting to book it.
Yes,
They say,
exactly.
we can't guarantee we want that because we don't know how much it
Yeah,
costs.
no, it's what they say what the traffic will bear. We have a little bit of experience of that at Presentation House. Our business was booming when we found out we were coming in at about $12 an hour cheaper than the municipality was. Like, we didn't know that.
Right.
Our rate was $12 an hour cheaper. We were
Right.
going, everybody wants to book us all the time. And then we went, that's because the municipality raised their rates.
Right,
So then when we raised our rates, you know, then these people started to leave again.
right,
You know, so it is driven quite a bit by
yeah.
the capacity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we want to be sensitive to that. Yeah.
And I can just say that we have variable rates as well.
Yeah.
That's a really good structure. You know, we charge differently for
Yeah.
different people as
Yeah.
for the same activity.
And so we got a couple of things that are beneficial to us in that, like, you know, so we've got an offsetting expense right now at this facility that we're renting that helps us bear the brunt of operating that new facility. We also lease and rent space in other places for recreation programming, which then, again, we will no longer have to pay that because we'll be using it in the community center. And so ultimately, though, we do have some new space that is totally new to us. And we don't have any standard programming to fill that space to generate that revenue. And so that will be the biggest revenue opportunity, but also the most important to get right, to be able to maximize that big multi-use space, right? The theater space. And because, you know, I'm not kidding myself, but like, we want to see that full, like we want to see it used, right? And, but, yeah.
Do we have any idea of the cost savings once you move into the center and you're not renting for the rec facilities and this place? And do you have an idea of what that?
Well, it's not a cost savings because we're absorbing new expenses, right? And so.
That's the wrong word, but.
Right, but it's an offset, so, right now, basically what we pay for rent here and what we pay for rent elsewhere just gets put into the operations of that new facility.
Would it be a bad thing for us, so we don't get lost in the details too quickly, to just start with the view that it's, that the operations of the space that we're putting in, that we have to generate the revenue just to cover just that and not get into the weeds of what you've just talked about? Do you know what I mean? That the basic infrastructure, like I'm talking basic custodial services and cost of electricity or something like that.
Right.
Is kind of covered, and now we're just looking at staffing, labor, extra equipment,
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
We haven't dug in, like, we have an understanding of what we believe the operating costs will be for the facility. And so we can start there and sort of say, okay, well, how close I don't, and Kristen probably kick me if she was right beside me, but I don't pretend to think that we're going to offset that full operating cost, especially in the first year of operating.
Gotcha.
And so I don't want us to set ourselves up for failure.
Yeah.
We have to cover this because, and we haven't planned it that way.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I think what we will need to do pretty soon is bring those numbers to the table. So say, okay, well, here's the anticipated operating cost. And then, okay, how do we start to offset that, right?
Yeah.
And we pull out like, okay, well, you know, the municipal hall component is a part of that. Like we're not trying to cover that piece, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I think I always get at it two ways. Like, that's the way you look at what your costs are, but then the other way you look at it is what the traffic will bear.
Yes.
Like what the traffic will bear, which is like the price you get to charge, and there's this going on.
Yeah.
You know, within what the activity is.
Yeah.
That, because that affects how much they charge.
Yeah.
The people who are doing it or whatever, right?
And I think what, like, from talking with other communities as well, is like, it will take a while to find that sweet spot in terms of like, what can we charge, which still brings in the traffic,
Yeah,
and getting to that place, but.
right.
And not sending those user groups back to where they were.
Yeah,
Because-
by accident, yeah.
Cost prohibitive, yeah. And it's a tricky conversation because the rooms most definitely are built to the response of these user groups who
Yeah,
said, this is what we need.
Yeah, but.
Insisted, this is what we need, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. And it's like
So-
the understanding of government subsidy. I mean, I don't think we need to solve it now, but I would propose one of the things that we do is create a kind of a philosophical structural model that informs the pricing decision-making, because there's always people who think it's unfair. As you were saying, Liam, this one is expected to pay this one is expected to pay something else. And we have discovered that, we started a flexible pricing system that was chosen by our patrons. They chose their ticket price because they placed themselves in an economic strata.
Wow.
You chose your strata.
Wow.
You chose to be rich, you chose to be middle class, you chose to be poor, and we said it's your private business. We won't ask.
Right.
And it worked unbelievably well.
Wow.
So we've extended that within our user groups. So we go, this user group is well-resourced, has the potential to make more money, and is therefore willing to pay a higher price. This user group is a community service.
Yeah.
It deserves to be subsidized. And so we built quite a complex structure on fees.
Great.
And everybody seems to be very happy.
Wow, that sounds great. I mean, that sounds a lot like what we've been talking about.
Yeah, it
this-
does work. It
Yeah.
does work if you're transparent and have a clear philosophical reason for doing that everyone understands.
Yeah.
Because everyone understands diversity of economic strata within a community. Everyone understands that.
That's
If they
great.
have a voice, then they'll have more buy-in.
Exactly. Yeah, if they
Yeah.
feel they can participate in that as opposed to being told.
Yeah.
That was the shift we made prior to the pandemic.
That
That structure.
that sounds fantastic, because that's exactly what we need, is that overarching policy around like service delivery and making sure that it's achievable, like reachable,
Yeah,
in the sliding scale or.
yeah.
And it sounds like, I remember when we went to Presentation House and you started the whole experience for us with laying out what that philosophical model
Yes, we
was.
started, it was our key was, as you know, Jillian, was making it value-based. And we started with the notion of being human-centric and value-based. So there's a kind of a transparency to that. Like anyone asks, we are transparent with our books.
Yeah.
Any user can ask to see like where our money is coming from and where it goes. Not down to the details,
Yeah.
but enough that it removes that
Yeah.
fear that somehow someone's getting advantage over somebody else.
And in some cases, there is that advantage, and and to your point about being transparent, I'll be explicit, like weddings are subsidized. The ability to
Yeah.
have like community groups.
Yeah,
And I think that's fair.
yeah. And never, and even people who are having a wedding will agree.
Yeah.
Because they only do it once, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think that's a subcommittee right there, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's good discussion though, I really like it. So just thinking about time, we wanted to talk a little bit about meeting schedule, subcommittees and site visit. Has anybody not been to the site?
I have to admit, I haven't had a chance yet.
Okay.
But
Okay, great.
Been in the theater, but not the rest, not the remainder, like.
You didn't go the rest of
I had to
that?
run. I had to run,
Right.
so, yeah, so I'd love to see that part of it for sure.
Is there a particular day of the week or time that works
it
best?
has to be after next Thursday. I open next Thursday and then my schedule's a little bit lighter.
Okay.
Then doesn't,
I'm flexible.
So next Tuesday is the 5th.
yeah, after the fifth for me.
I can email out some proposed dates
Okay,
and times.
sounds good.
And in terms of meeting schedule, we've got monthly Wednesdays at 2.
Rob?
The hour of 2 till 3 p.m. daily is most challenging for me.
Okay. Every day.
Every single day.
Every single, not just every day, Saturdays and Sundays, and I know why.
Wednesdays at 3:30?
It's fine, that's fine for me, yes.
Do you say, what, sorry, I can't.
Wednesdays at 3:30? How is
Wednesdays
that?
at 3:30.
I can do
Also,
That's not every day, it's every Wednesday.
Wednesday, no, maybe.
monthly, right?
Monthly, yeah.
Or monthly, although I question if that's gonna be enough.
Yeah, maybe.
I do, I still
Start.
have to say, my little heart goes like this.
Yeah.
When you, if you're looking at like, you can say mid-February, maybe a month delay,
Yeah,
and, wow.
maybe 2, who knows?
Yeah, yeah. I just revisit about like what we're trying to accomplish within that time period.
Yeah.
Like because
Well, we can
on-time delivery is what we do, so I
If we
just,
can start with bi-weekly, we can always pull back if we feel we're making good progress and attendance is important, but obviously this is your valuable volunteer time. And so, if you have other commitments, then, we can try to work around that.
And will we be able to participate virtually?
Yes.
That would be-
To meet each other.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important priority and for this first meeting, that'll be another piece that helps a lot for.
Can we have the option? To be
Virtual?
in person or virtual?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, sometimes scheduling of this room can be tough.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna be virtual, it's also easier to like, it's hard to see.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're all sick of Zoom, so.
Yeah, I personally like the in person, but
Oh,
that's just, I just find that it's more effective.
Yeah.
than Zoom.
Hybrid.
Hybrid is totally feasible, but it's just never as good as if we're all on Zoom or all in person.
It's a small group too.
Yeah.
It would need to be one or the other.
The acoustics for, I'm sorry, the acoustics for a Zoom meeting are really bad in that room.
oh, good to know.
Hybrid.
Yeah, for the hybrid, it's not great. So we'll strive for in person, but if not, maybe we'll go for Zoom.
We'll commit to.
So you're talking like, this is the end of the month, so the next one would be,
So Wednesday, the 11th would be 2 weeks. That's not a great day for the organization. There's a site visit for council and some staff. Maybe the 18th Wednesday? Is that okay?
Works for me.
And possibly there can be a subcommittee meeting in between.
Yeah.
So Wednesday, October 18th. Any objections to that?
Just as long as we're done by about 6 or so, because I got a dress rehearsal that day.
Oh, dress rehearsal, okay. That's,
actually in Montreal.
so you'll be zooming in.
I'll be zooming.
So it'll be a Zoom.
Perfect, it'll be 6:30. Your poutine.
No, a poutine, not Putin, poutine breakfast. I think
Okay.
18th, that's a Wednesday, yep.
I'm away for pretty much the whole month of November, but
So the next one would be the end of October, is that right? Then there would be one.
So the next would be November 1st. Oh yeah, let's do this, okay.
Just quick.
I'll be gone.
First.
I won't be around.
And then November 15th, oh, and I'll staff forum that day, go. Maybe at 3:30, it's okay. Okay, that's the rhythm I'll send out.
Sure.
I'll send you Outlook calendar and everything will have a Zoom link even if we're live. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
In thinking about like subcommittees and the ambitious work ahead of us, do we want to create a subcommittee? Or does this committee want to create a subcommittee to,
Topics.
well,
Now sort of parse some stuff out.
mostly to chart a little bit of a list of priority items, not necessarily to dig into them or even to prioritize them, but rather like, I think we have ideas of the types of policies and work that the group needs to tackle, but I think it would be great to start to build that. list out.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea, like there's a lot on the table, so maybe just spend a little bit of time here figuring out what the areas are, and they're essentially like subcommittees.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like, so we're not overwhelmed.
Yeah, and we come back on the 18th and we go, okay, we want to touch on these things and then we can get to agreement on, yes, but those are the items and we should focus in on that one first or what have you.
Do you have some ideas? I mean, I've been making notes, but I mean, you probably already have thought this out a little bit.
Yeah, well, one of the most important for, not so much necessarily for literally opening the door, but for that pre-planning is that rate sheet.
Yeah, I just put that up, fee structure, rate
Yeah.
sheet.
And
That's
so-
one committee for sure.
Because as I think Jillian sort of alluded to, is that will help inform the community in terms of their
Yeah.
ability and willingness to
Right,
engage.
to start, but because I think with all that planning, it's like now, we're booked up like a year in advance, right? So I'm looking, if you're starting to have people use the facility, let's say March 1st,
Yeah,
they're going to be wanting to make decisions about that probably within a month, I would think, unless they can quickly. Do you know what I mean? If it's an activity they're doing.
I don't think March 1st is where we're gonna be at. I gotta be careful, but my gut feeling is that maybe April 1st is not a day we're gonna open the door.
But it's a huge priority, I feel, that
Yeah,
this rate sheet.
yeah, just because if let's say whatever I'm doing that now. And if the idea was that I'm going to
Yes.
do that over there, then
Exactly.
I've got a relationship with the person I'm doing with it now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I'm also looking at what I'm charging people and what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
Selling tickets or all that stuff. It's the economic, it's the cultural and recreational economic engine of this community that's gonna have a little disruption,
Right.
right?
So, yes, so I think if we focus in on that as our, well, let's not make a decision right here right now, but to me, that's been one of the key drivers.
Yeah.
So we're going to be hiring a facility manager. We're going to be, during the handover and the commissioning of the facility, we're gonna get binders of like facility operation manuals and stuff. And so like turning the door and opening it and we're gonna have the support and resources to make that happen. But where we really need some help is these types of policies.
Right, and the other one I put down, because I think it relates to it, is what I call a kind of a management model. Because I have to say, looking at what the proposal is, I see some voids in the plan in terms of the managing of the facility versus what the activities that are being proposed perhaps. And so I think there needs to be a look at how it gets, managed and sorted out between recreational activities and cultural activities, between visual arts and performing arts, just that whole area, because we're charged with making sure that runs smoothly. That in and of itself is another big area, right? So that, recommend that being a subcommittee too.
Yeah.
To go away and do some drilling down on how that all might operate,
Yeah. And again, just the caveat is that like, I think we get these down and in writing, and it may be that we find 6 months in, a year in, that they've need tweaking it.
Totally, yeah, it's just to put the.
Because it is not a private facility or because it is a public facility, I anticipate that we will have lobbying
Yeah,
and people making their pitches. So,
yeah, and I think that's the other one is kind of what I call curation, which is something you use for visual arts, but even for us in our facility, we call it programming. And programming isn't just about the shows that we put on. Programming is about what goes on in our building.
Exactly.
And how we balance all of that.
Exactly.
So that's like another subcommittee.
Yeah.
I think that one's a little bit different than the management model, because the management model is more about the day-to-day, who's like keys, who's opening stuff, whose roles and responsibilities between people, and like how much you're paying people, and are you asking them to do way too much? And also management model is your relationship to volunteerism, because you can do a lot with volunteers. We do a lot. We have volunteers, casual labor, and we have part-time staff, we have contract, like we have all these different models to manage the place. And again, it's the same thing, people are getting paid different. We thought we couldn't do it, to have a volunteer work beside somebody making $25 an hour, doing exactly the same job. When we started that, it was during the pandemic, we were told that that's a terrible idea. It's working really well. I just was very surprised by that, right? Because I thought the person who was doing it for volunteering would go, hey, how come I'm not getting paid?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's, is that a good grouping for, just put all that together in a?
Yeah, let's,
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
The rate sheet subcommittee, management model subcommittee, and programming.
Programming, curation. that whole
Curation,
thing, yeah. Anybody have any other ones that you wanna, Rob, that you wanna throw in there?
Those are the big sort of overarching philosophical things, really.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And maybe as you talked, Liam, was the opening, like, or just like celebration, I guess you call it, that planning. The tricky thing that I see is like buildings are enablers of activities, and you can get, everyone gets so excited by the opening. It's actually what happens after that.
Yeah, good point.
You go like this, and then it goes.
yeah.
So.
Why is it so quiet here?
I can see opportunities for members of the public who are not on this committee to be involved in those opening celebration plans as well, so.
And
That's way more fun.
That's why I also asked.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do the hard work.
The staggered thing.
Yeah, and Rob and I had a good conversation about it too, like in that the real celebration won't actually happen until after we've been open for a bit.
Yeah, staggered sort of a.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, definitely this committee needs to be involved in that part of it, but I think a little more thinking needs to be done around like, how that's gonna happen and, you know, just off the original, like, the original sort of thing, it was like, there will be that, like classic, like ribbon cutting, like, and we got incredibly generous funding from the province and the federal government. And so we'll be inviting our MLA and our MP and the program funders and the donors that have made it happen. And so.
And is that this committee? Is that you said?
No, I don't see, no. I mean, this committee, yes, input, welcome, like being,
It's not our.
yeah. No, I don't think so. I think that, I think be informed and be able to inform that event and that thing, but I don't think this committee needs to coordinate and
We're not a
organize.
planner. Yeah, so we don't need that.
But it could be on that committee as well.
Yeah.
So what about populating these subcommittees?
There's not enough of us.
There's not enough, it's ready.
Got Kim on rate sheets.
Well, if I might, I would almost suggest that we start with that cost policy rate sheet piece. And that we let the other bits percolate and we start to dig into that, the rate sheet piece.
Right.
And these other elements will start to crystallize as we move forward.
Right. Do we have the expertise in the room to know currently what the user groups are and what their budgets currently are in terms of what they're paying? Does that information exist?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like for what, I know.
Well, for us, yeah.
You guys, for Tony, but for all the ones who may be, and I mean, both in terms of rec or whatever, what their budgets currently have.
And where they're going.
Yeah, like.
Facilities.
That can be helpful too.
Like Kelly Conum, with the year-end dance recital.
Yeah.
And Bix, what they're charging, but.
Yeah, what people are paying, because that is a really, really useful information. Because without that information, we could work on the cost factor, but then we don't know what kind of a disruption we're causing, right? I mean, there can be an increase, and there's also modeling around that, but getting that information into the meeting early, like into the discussion early, is really crucial. Because it just causes us from making a bone-ass mistake. Because you don't want to be in a position where you're posting it and then you say, oh, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to, I don't know the island well enough. Was it canvassed when you surveyed groups? Did you get that information about what they were currently paying?
Yeah, that information is readily available and it was obtained. I know that the rates at the school are under review at the moment because they haven't been increased since 2012. So they're really not reflective of.
Right, yeah. It's okay if they are changing. It's just to get a bit of a ballpark, just to kind of know what.
But, finding out Kate's Hill and Red Church and all that, there's not a lot of information to obtain. But I think that was the intention with this comparative research subcommittee, was to go out and, for people to go out and get that information.
Oh, okay, so we'd have to get it.
Yeah, and it's also comparing with off island as well.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at this new facility attracting audiences, not just audiences or performances that aren't purely local, right? So.
Yeah, but performances are a different kettle of fish, because then you're asking what the ticket price is. So the ticket price is different from what the rental cost of it is. So if I'm putting an event on, I need to know what my costs are, which can determine what my ticket prices are. And so some people will pay a higher ticket price to be in a different venue, right? So I think this is, before we get into ticketing prices, it's up to the people who are programming to determine their ticket prices. Ticket prices are based on what my costs are. So my costs are not just the venue, they're the artist. There's also marketing and advertising. Anyway, so ferries, whatever. So for the basic thing is to figure out who the user is, how their own personal micro business model is working. Even if I'm going to put on, say, Scrabble, and it's for seniors, but I have a mandate that it has to be very accessible. So I'm only charging $5 a year to be a member of the Scrabble Club. That's my philosophy, right? So having that information helps, because I know, oh, that's what you do, and this is the microeconomy you work in. That's how it helps you determine your price setting, right? Because you need to, Judy,
I think, Tony, every time we put on a production, there has to be a budget. I've been the treasurer and I'm a hard ass about what they're suggesting is going to be spent on any production. So I think we've got a reasonably good idea of what all the venues that exist and the prices that they're charging, and different people that support different events. It's not complete because it's just live theater, but we've got contacts with the other group. So I don't think that's going to be a problem in terms of getting that at least a pretty good rough outline.
Great, thank you. Because that's a great place for this, that's where I would start, putting that information together and going. That helps you discover what the market will bear.
Yeah.
And then you kind of know where you're working.
Yeah, we've done shows in 4 venues in the past 2 years, so.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good idea.
You guys had right.
So it sounds to me like Kim needs to be on this subcommittee.
And then do we need someone from finance?
Somebody from finance, perhaps? I don't know.
I'm happy to be on that subcommittee as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Staff or? Okay.
I'll join.
Sure. So everybody's going to be on every committee, I think.
Probably, that sounds great.
Technically,
Exactly.
I will certainly help to contribute information into that committee from my.
Okay.
And again, what
You're
we're,
on the management model committee, you just can't be on all of them.
and again, this is like, the idea is that this smaller group will go away and do some of that work and collaborate together on that and bring it back to this. You know, so maybe what we strive to do is, for the 18th, when we meet again, if we can all put our minds to the different types of policy or procedural work that we believe we need to do so that we can craft that list of priorities. But then the three of us, or Rob, did you put your name?
I was booting him into another committee.
No, I'm saying I'll help gather information, but not to.
Right. So the three of us commit to meeting before the 18th to start talking about this particular issue of the rate sheet, starting to like put a skeletal structure around that. And then bring that back.
Sounds great.
And we've got a document that Jillian saw, but I have access to, which is more of an overarching philosophical document that goes before the rates.
That sounds
To
fantastic.
help people understand that there's gonna be a difference and why.
And on the F drive, there are various comparative rate sheets on it.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent.
Such as presentation has.
Right, that's good.
Okay. So will we get in touch and sort something out?
Yeah, I'll reach out to you two and find a time after Thursday, you said?
Yeah, just, well, it could be, if we were having a phone thing, it could be done before Thursday. Just my schedule's a bit busy this week till next Thursday, and then it turns into a real schedule again.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just gonna, right now, send an empty email to you all with all your emails.
Oh, great.
Done.
We're supposed to check to see if we got it? No.
No, just know that it's not very friendly.
Oh, it's not a friendly.
There's nothing in
Oh,
the,
I thought you were like.
it's just so everybody has each other's email.
Oh, I see, it's not very friendly, oh, okay.
Yeah.
When we say that, it usually means it's like.
It's not angry.
It's in it.
Was there something in Shauna's files that Jackie and her put that together already? Fees for all the different venues on Bowen? It's outdated, so I don't know if it's relevant anymore.
Just if you, just because of which all the different venues are, even though we know all the rates are gonna change, it's just all the diversity, or that document, just for me would be useful.
I've never seen it, but I wonder if they worked on something like that. Well, I think we both should look then, because they would be both in Jackie's and Shauna's files. I'll look. Yeah. Have a look and see if there's something.
Good.
There are many files,
Yeah.
but not necessarily great information.
I think that they must have done something because they were trying to develop a budget. There was some sort of budget at one point, so they would have determined probably some costs, but.
Do we wanna get volunteers for just the other two committees? So we don't leave them dangling, and the other one I've got down is kind of a programming one, which is getting behind kind of curation, decision-making of use of the spaces.
I think some of that follows in the philosophy around race and priorities that, you know, that kind of
Give some sort of I guess ensuring access for, you know, local, you know, like various discussions around how to make sure that there's some not an order of priority, but a sort of you know, philosophical drivers around the values of how rates follow those.
Right, because they do. I mean, that's what we do is in order to ensure our mandate is fulfilled, we use that as a way of determining rates. So therefore, some people get the space for free. And we say, you get it for free, and you have to pay $2. You have to pay $300, and you're not allowed. Right? And we do that.
Ripped down my sign, wasn't it?
So, but we're that specific. I mean, we're that direct, right?
Yeah.
So it really makes it clear, as you're right, it is within that rate structure. Because some people go, you can come in, but you can't come in the $2 door, right? Because the $2 door is for you. Like, and I mean, it's an activity that we describe that fits within our mandate. We use this to sort out certain kinds of users. And then we limit the number of like $400 users, like, because you were talking about weddings, because they'd encroach us. And of course, it's a big struggle because of the budget.
Yeah.
So we go, we need more of these.
Yes.
But then we threaten our mandate because now the $2 users are going to be, their noses are going to be out of joint. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I think that kind of helps to drive who's most encouraged to, you're right, so I think the second thing then is really the management model being the other piece to follow, because I think this sort of creation of users is gonna come out of your discussions, right?
Gotcha, and the management model it becomes a cost. We run into this all the time, and it has to do with how we're using volunteerism, how we're using people under contract as opposed to people who are under like employees where we have benefits, and the people who are not on that level. That's what I look at, that whole way of, it's labor. It's basically, how do you get under your labor costs and keep your labor costs reasonable and have full community engagement? And how do you manage that community engagement?
I'll put my name on there.
That one.
On the management
I'd
model?
like to see how our the next discussions in sort of, priority topics of focus that, can inform that. So I wouldn't see that coming together as urgently.
Urgently, right, yeah. Okay.
I'll put my name on like allotment and all that management side as well too.
Okay, yeah, and I'd be involved with that. It seems to me though that, if we're coming up with this philosophical structural model and it's tied to budgets, obviously there are very implications of that, and this is going to have to be something that goes to council and is agreed upon, and other things are falling out from that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things will come.
So I think that, that's really key then, to get that crafted in a way that we can bring it forth to council for discussion and implementation, adoption.
And it is, but I agree with Rob, but you do, like, you can build your philosophical model like we did and then find out you're $150,000 short in making it work.
Right.
And that's when it goes to the management model of going, so how do you find this is what we want to do, and this is how much money we can get out of the community to do it, but then what do we need to do on this side to make it work? So they are interrelated.
Right.
Yeah, so you can put one forward and get everyone excited, or you put the other one forward and everyone falls down dead because they go, this is ridiculous, you know what I mean? So there is a direct connection between like, as you say, every time you the key one is really interesting, because you charge money, you pay somebody to be there to open up the building, so you have that 4-hour call, minimum call, right?
Yeah.
So we got around that because we went like, well, is there a way we can avoid that cost to allow access? So we developed a keying system that allowed people to access certain parts of our building without needing any labor at all, right? And then, but not everybody. So we created a club of people who had the ability to do that, who were on a volunteer basis, that kind of structural stuff.
Yeah.
See the interrelation between the two.
Some of that's gonna take time.
It does, but you just, if you put a brain around it and know you're gonna build it eventually, it just people can get on board.
So a couple of sort of questions that I have too for the committee to consider is, one is, and maybe this was already done and Rob or others might know who've been, Judy perhaps, that are involved earlier on. Like, was there ever like a vision or mission for the facility that was created? If not, then I think this committee would be well positioned to work on that. And that would be something to be developed, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure if for this particular facility, if that sort of vision statement, there's some things that are here in the beginning, in the preamble of the terms of reference. So the joint management that sort of speak to the values that are being put forward. There certainly were, even in the way olden days, vision statements around probably the community hall and art center. Various entities of groups that were advocating for mainly the performance facility piece. But as a whole community center, this is probably what we've got.
Yeah.
That's most.
The division and
Right, there it is. It says vision, right?
Yeah, it does.
the MOU is.
Yeah, the vision in the MOU is performance.
Yeah, I think I'm not being critical of it. I mean, I was part of this, but I'm not sure it's what, like, I imagine perhaps these words are on the wall.
Yeah, no, exactly. You need something that's a little bit more, and I might, because when I look at your map, again, the map is divided into three things.
Yeah.
For us, we would, because we have different spaces, we end up developing one for each space.
Okay,
Because,
interesting.
and then you can have different price
Yeah.
structures.
Right.
Because you go, that's what this is about.
Right.
That's what this is about, and that's what this is about. And because this is about
Yeah.
this, it has these rates and these roles, and this is about this, so it's different. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I hear you. I think though, we're gonna see, like in the large multi-purpose room, for example, we're gonna see a wide spectrum.
No, exactly, but what you do is it helps you determine, it helps you from going down the rabbit hole of having one philosophical rate structure, which then people use against you.
Yeah. Well, so carrying on from the idea of like, is there a standing vision that can stand for the entire facility, or maybe it's different rooms, but I'm also contemplating the idea of a code of conduct
Yes, well,
within the facility too, that, and that might be more.
that is the broad one. We have one of those, which is about anybody who's actually involved in our organization in the building for anywhere for
Yeah.
anything.
Like with the municipality, we have our own,
Yeah.
but I think would need to expand that to be capturing anybody that is using the space.
Public participation and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Acting Chair.
Yes.
I was getting optimistic about the timing because I pressed to leave soon. And,
Yes.
and I know that we were scheduled to go till 6, but I don't want to leave before.
The election of who?
No.
I'm sorry, of the chair.
Right, and I see that,
Decline that.
yes, and I see Councillor Getty is running out of battery power there too.
Oh my
so-
God.
Yeah.
Can I just make sure I've captured this part right then for the cost policy rate sheet? I put it up there. We've got Kim, Fraser and Liam. And that is for the next
Yep.
meeting, something we'll have to deliver. And management model, we've got Rob, Fraser, Jillian.
And not for the next meeting.
Not for the next meeting, no, later.
Yeah.
And I don't have anyone for these. Are these three for?
Well, the other was programming, but I think that can be later. Like
Yeah.
I think these are the
Okay.
two pieces.
Great.
I'm just gonna quickly put something else on there, and that
Yes.
is, and I'm not sure how this will unfold, but it's effectively like a community relations. And so our biggest partner is the community.
Yeah.
But then we have an immediate adjacent neighbor, which is the Bix school. And we're gonna have real shared use arrangements for things like parking and venues and stuff. And so just throwing that out as another one. But to the fun, exciting bit about election of the chair and vice chair.
Sorry.
No way, you're not, lock the doors, nobody's leaving.
I'd like to nominate Fraser.
I was gonna nominate Kim.
I don't think I can be on a subcommittee. Well, no, I guess you're on a subcommittee. Well, I don't know.
Maybe start with what are the roles and responsibilities for the chair?
I can speak to that.
Perfect, yes.
Yeah, so you don't have to do a lot. I'll do most of your work for you. You need to do what Liam's doing now, and I'll be contacting you to say what kind of agenda items would you like. Julian will support that as well. And
Organize the meetings.
I think the biggest role of chair is ensuring decorum and that the meeting agenda is flowing and you're getting through the agenda items. But ultimately, staff does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of like building the agenda, and she reaches out to the staff liaisons and the chair, whoever that might be, to sort of say, okay, here's the agenda, thumbs up,
what do you think? Yeah.
publish,
Get some
go.
sign off, yeah.
But, yeah.
And reviewing minutes.
So that we can delegate out.
Well,
So
the
maybe when the
minutes
elections are
Minutes,
over.
minutes is everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd like it to be one person then that can,
Yeah, really press.
yeah,
But
after the
two
elections.
community participants. Like in terms of the structure of this, who needs to be the chair? Do you know what I mean? Like, is they're the one, like, could it be, is it just an internal, exactly, it can't be staff, it can't
It's
be
not,
council.
it's not the council.
Is it, if you guys
It
are on the
occurred-
steering committee, is it good for you to be, is it good for someone on the steering committee to be chair? Or is it a bad idea for someone on the steering?
It occurred to me that one of the community members who applied for those two slots, that, gives me a lot of comfort because, then the person chairing isn't seen as necessarily the municipality's voice or the hearth's voice. It is a joint management committee and there's sort of community appointees as well. So, because I have an affiliation and I don't want that to necessarily be seen as the thing and so that's just sort of my, plus I would,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't mind being chair then, because you're on Toady. I don't have any, what do you call it?
It's nothing pulling on his time at all.
No, not that.
Yeah, I have to be able to get a hold of the person.
You don't have an organizational affiliation.
I don't have an organizational affiliation with anyone on both. Right, I don't, from somewhere else. Although I live here, but. And can you get a hold of me? Yeah, I'm generally pretty good. I have my own board on my back.
Oh, perfect.
I understand the importance of.
So we had one nomination and then.
There's a competition.
And then there was another.
Another nominee.
I'm fine either way, to be honest.
Vice, then you could be vice chair.
Vice chair.
Yeah.
I'm up for that.
Okay, we'll be co-chair.
There we go.
Or you could do co-chairs.
Technically, the committee needs to vote on this, but if we only have the two standing and I'm seeing nods around the table.
You're the only
And we lost
chair,
Judith's
so
phone
probably
died.
elections are over.
Can I make a motion
Yeah.
that the Community Center Joint Management Committee elect Kim Selby as chair and Fraser Elliott as vice chair? Can it be, that all be one motion?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right.
I can second
I'm
it.
not voting.
I think we have to
You
vote.
can still vote.
All in favor of each other as.
Fantastic. Okay.
Thank you.
None opposed?
No, nobody's opposed.
Excellent.
So with that in mind, does anybody want to be the minutes person? Looking at you.
I'm actually not a very good typer, believe it or not.
Oh,
No,
it's to
just to
review.
check.
Just reviewing, yes,
Just
okay,
to check
sure.
that I didn't
Yes,
make up
absolutely.
huge lies.
Okay,
Too
absolutely.
many zeros or,
We did not say that.
yeah.
Typer, yes, absolutely.
Because you're taking the minutes.
Yes.
And then it's about review. Yeah, that's,
Yeah, so you'll be the reviewer?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
thank you.
I mean, anyone's free to pipe in. I love it when people criticize the minutes.
That's not how I would characterize it.
I think she does, because it means she read them.
Yeah, exactly. Put a little plant.
Liam, you just, before we did that, you were bringing up about community relations. And that's like, is it like, so I've always assumed there are all these existing stakeholders already, right, that are part of it. And so when you said that, what are you looking for from this committee in relationship to the stakeholders? Are we like a public face of decision-making?
Well, every committee is a publicly known entity,
Right.
a committee of council, and this committee will get solicited, like will get lobbied by stakeholders.
Right.
And the public. And our valued partners that we work together with. And so it may not be that like the committee has a subcommittee or of like community relations, but it may be that we have some community relations policy developed through this committee.
Gotcha.
In facility management and in
Right.
particular, how does the facility engage with its biggest stakeholders?
Gotcha.
So like in a partnership way, like in particular, I think about the school and and we've had lots of informal discussions. So we have another joint management committee with the school and the municipality because it's a community school and because the municipality contributes money to the school and to use the facilities at the school and such. And so we meet periodically through the year to talk about like shared issues. And so we've had initial discussions about like, oh, okay, well, what's it gonna be like to be nearest neighbors now? And how are we going to co-manage that neighborhood together?
Right.
Because the kids will just literally charge across the field to the community center. And when we hold an event, there will be spillover parking at the school and vice versa. And so how do we navigate all of that? And
I think for me, that might be fitting into a little bit of what the management model thing is, because both of these require an overarching document, as you were alluding to, which is a vision document. We call it a values-based document, which is, it's not just like behavior, it's what our values are, which inform why we made these rules, why we made these choices.
Right.
And that's like, so I'm getting into our gig to figure that out.
Thanks so much, Rob.
Thanks, sorry.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Have a good night.
Have a good evening.
You have a good night too.
Oh, yes.
All that you got ahead of you. Yeah, so is it's like this committee's gig to try and refine a document like that? And
I
then
think
send it to council to kind of look at?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, like, we will carry on with the joint management committee with the school. And so that's Jillian and I that meet with the school. But then there's going to be much more direct relationship with how we operate the facility.
Right.
And so, okay, we're probably then bringing issues up that the school's raising to this committee.
Right.
And like, so part of this committee, the biggest work right now is like, what do we need to operate the facility to get going? The committee will evolve into an like more of a management operating type. I gotta be careful here. It's not an operating committee, but like the committee will need to be in existence so long as the facility is in existence. And there will be issues that come up
Got it, right.
with some of our partners and stakeholders and user groups that this committee will have to contemplate and consider.
So I get, go ahead.
Like, for instance, there's certain facilities that BIM rents, like the offices, the rec offices, the gym, that they'll no longer receive income from. The school. Well, so has that been and that's not the only one, like there's Tiernanog and there's other facilities that are being rented, I guess not through BIM. I'm just worried about the relationship with some of the facilities on the island that may lose revenue.
Oh, yes, and that comes to
And
his
that,
earlier
yeah,
comments about the disruptive nature of the facility coming online.
okay, yes.
Yeah, for sure, we've got to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But I think we want to be sensitive to it, but not to be crass, it's not our responsibility to manage that.
And sometimes what happens is and this may be true and it may not be true, but I do think that the underlying principle is that there's capacity within the community overall for overall growth in this area. So it's not like that there's a disruption, but that disruption can cause growth, right? And I think the other part of it that's important is we're doing policy, but we're also an ongoing, active, evolving organic structure to be reactive and a place where it's kind of dispute resolution, almost in a way, as tensions arise. There's one central point, so the tension happens in this room, fights happen in this room, right?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, yeah. And more so, what I was thinking about with the school itself is that we literally will have, like we talked about having a shared calendar. Or having somehow sharing calendar.
Yeah.
And so that we're understanding each other's, like,
Which is how we operate now, because we need to collaborate on use of the gym and understanding, like we know when their spring concerts are and things like that, so.
So we'll continue to work with the school in that way, and then that information will come up to this committee because it'll inform programming and use of our facility, because our nearest neighbor is doing things that impacts us.
There's some things like pickleball that will remain at the community.
That's
There are
right.
a lot, everything involves ball, everything, well, because we can't use balls.
It may be the
in
first
our
community in Canada that doesn't have a pickleball lawsuit. It's gone into some kind of a legal
It's
issue over
both
pickleball.
ways, it's the anti and the pro pickleballers.
I know, that's what I mean, it's like we somehow avoid that. I always look at it a bit like this, to be honest, is we're like all-star wrestling. From the outside, it looks like it's competitive, but they always meet for lunch to figure out how to make the game go better.
Yeah.
Right? So, it looks like there's animosity and tension.
Exactly.
But what you're really trying to do is create more excitement and awareness.
Maybe there could be a play at Tirnanog about the drama,
The drama,
between
the
the two
border
places.
Oh, yeah, never.
And then maybe actually in the future, if there are enough groups renting out all the different venues that we currently have events happening, there could be an opportunity for membership for all of the event spaces. So if one were a frequent theater goer, they could go to all the places. Kind of a membership and pay less for tickets.
Annual membership, yeah.
All the venues.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I think we've covered an incredible amount of ground, and I'm really pleased that we have a chair, vice chair,
Vice chair, yeah.
and even more so that some of the key policy pieces have already been identified, and we've got some tangible work that we're gonna sink our teeth into, so.
Can I ask when you are thinking would be good to have like what you called your rate sheet? Like, if you have some sense, when you would need something in your hand for that? Based on where, you know the user groups, and I'm asking even you, Jamie, for like what's out there, even, with Tony, for people decision making. When do you think, just to get it even with a month?
Right.
I'm literally trying to, as I say, do time management, on-time delivery stuff.
Yeah, I actually haven't put my mind to that in terms of like when. To me, it's just the sooner the better.
The sooner the better.
Yeah.
What we could actually do too is look at the council meeting schedule and sort of do some planning a little bit by that, knowing that everything has to go to council, right?
Because I don't mean we have all the things worked out.
Yeah.
But like it's gonna affect like so many moving parts. There needs to be a draft.
Yes.
And it needs to be then talked about. And also, it's the structure of like figuring out fees. I'm a little bit nervous if every adjustment needs to go through council.
No,
Just
well,
it slows it down. And so where's where's that line? Like, where's the leeway in us figuring things out?
well, I think what we would be doing is having internal discussions, and we can test the waters with that, with some of our community organizations as well, before we're bringing it to council for their consideration.
Because there's a limited, we're not in a big pond, like in North Vancouver, we know, we're not Vancouver, we're not GDRD. But we do get user groups from Vancouver, so it's a competitive market.
Right.
So we've got a lot more flexibility, but a lot more problems. I'm wondering if here, because it's a fixed, smaller community, there's a fixed number of players.
Yeah.
And so there might be a different model that we can look at, because we know there's not as many unknowns, am I right? There's not that many unknown user groups out there.
Yeah, no. Or maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think that's actually been a big target with this facility, is actually that it's going to attract the off-island user groups.
For
Yeah.
for specific venues, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing with the council approvals is like, council, the way I often think about it is council is responsible for a scope, schedule, budget.
Right.
And whether it's the amount we charge for moorage at government dock or the amount we charge for drinking water at your tap, council sets that.
Right.
And so we want to do as much work as we can internally and getting as much feedback on those rates as possible before we bring it to council. Because if we want to adjust them, we do have to go back.
Right. I'm just wondering, let me put my mind to a different model that creates at a lower level
Yeah.
some flexibility.
Yeah.
Because it'll be too slow and not able to be reactive.
Yeah.
And then if we make a mistake, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but we're learning, we need to go through some learning.
Ranges work.
Ranges work.
Yeah,
Okay.
right? I mean, and so we can do that if that's what we think is the best, that we can bring
Try
that
and
forward.
figure that out.
There's gonna be lots of different scenarios that will
Yeah.
happen, like Jillian says, the à la carte menu,
Yeah.
you know, renting the projector.
I mean, they do, the hotels do that, but what the best thing in my view, is that you have people who are encouraging to become regular users who you end up teaching and learning. And then your relationship betters and your costs go down because they don't need as much hand-holding, training, things, right? Then you fall into a rhythm, you know where you're going. And so you build that. At the same time, you have your à la carte menu for people who are one-time users. So you get into this more complex modeling, which if you make it rigid too soon, you end up having way more work of undoing and causing miscommunication and confusions. So you want to organically grow into that model. So which is all good. It's just that it's the part that I don't have experience and understanding of. It's this relationship to council at the level they need to approve things. So we could propose something, get it approved, and then literally do that on Thursday. And then by next Wednesday, we're going, you know. And then a month later, we're going, you know what, and then that can be frustrating for everybody. Just trying to, so good to know that, but that's why.
Is good, yeah, if there's a range.
Yeah, figure out range, and it's structural range stuff about like how much of it has to make sense. But I understand, so the best way we build it is from the top down. We build it from the top down. And if you're operational, like when we were operational, we built it so that we could have what it looked like arbitrary flexibility from the outside, but it was literally test kitchen modeling.
Right.
We're gonna test kitchen this idea with this group.
Yeah.
We're gonna put them on a different kind of a contract with a different relationship, see how that goes,
Yeah.
learn from it.
Yeah.
And then decide whether we're gonna change that.
The beauty and challenge of being a government entity is that absolute transparency and the lack of subjectivity.
Right.
So that the idea of arbitrary decision-making doesn't enter our world.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of where, trying to figure out that management model, sometimes that, like, at the lower levels, it's building something that has that kind of flexibility in the first, till the dust settles. Because then you get return users, and they people, we have people who were grandfathered in Pune, we call it. We grandfathered in Pune with her Middle Eastern Dance Academy, because she's been going there long before me. She's been there like 23 years.
Right.
You know, so she's got her own special relationship.
Yeah.
You know, that's,
Yeah, and so like, and we will have people lobbying council to amend the rates, or this isn't fair, and what have you, and.
Or you create relationships right off the bat and.
yeah, that's right. It's like,
It's hard to get them back.
yeah, that's what you want to try to avoid.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, challenging. It's good because people may have a relationship with a space already. It's like a model, and you go like, oh, this is the model that'll work for that. This model works.
And so as a group, the three of us may decide like, well, we want to engage some of the stakeholder groups.
Yeah.
A little more, and like, we gotta, and we can do that, but we gotta be really careful, right? Like, and no promises.
Yeah.
More like information gathering, just questions.
Yeah.
Ask.
I can see, good, but it's great. It's a defined community, which helps.
Do we need to look at the sort of the operating budget to determine some of these prices as well?
Yeah,
Or by room,
yep.
the operating budget?
We don't have operating budget by room, but we definitely need that.
Does it need to be looked at though? I mean,
Yeah.
running the small multipurpose room will be less cost than the big multipurpose room.
The tricky thing is tied to the management model, because most of the running costs are labor, I'm imagining. Like with us, it's mostly like, I mean, there's utilities.
Like lights are on, the lights are on.
Exactly, like so it's the labor piece.
Yeah, because even with like electricity now, even with like LED and stuff like that, it hasn't become a major factor. Like for us, our operational plant costs like don't vary that much in terms of energy costs. And like those taxes, energy, sewer, water, all that stuff is stable. The thing that just goes like this is labor, about who's in there and how many people, who's being paid and who isn't. And what are their responsibilities and how much labor needs to be there.
Yep.
I think one of the elements that may factor into that, if we choose to, and where it's more relevant with the different rooms, is the capital replacement costs of the equipment, which in some way needs to be considered.
I was wondering about that, the initial equipment.
Definitely, the big room, will have higher costs.
Yeah.
So this is fantastic. No, but it's really good, and but yeah, we're right on just about 6 o'clock, so we should wrap it up unless there's.
3 actions to confirm.
Oh, okay.
3
Okay,
actions.
you've got them up. Yeah, okay.
Look at you, you're good. The rate subcommittee will meet, make some notes, get some kind of draft to me by hopefully October 12th if you can meet, or 11th.
Right?
Can't meet before then, that's okay, and
Oh, that was for me, right? That's a draft agenda, right? And so
No.
notes from the subcommittee meeting.
okay.
Yeah, that's
For
right.
subcommittee. Jamie and Julie are gonna look for existing list of program space costs, and it was asked to bring ideas for subcommittees, but then we have 5. You want 5 more?
Well, if there's others, like, let's
Okay.
just bring them and we put them on the list.
Let's bring them.
You had 5 already?
Yeah.
Are there any other actions that I've missed?
The priority list? Is that what you're talking about? Bring ideas for subcommittees?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that everybody's gonna be full of, after this first meeting, there's gonna be a lot percolating.
Right, oh, I see.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Excellent. Well done, everybody.
Adjourn? Somebody has to move to adjourn. Oh, Jamie got it, yay.
Awesome, I gotta jump into rehearsal.